Hi there, my name's Chris Can with Mining Magazine, and we're at the Future of Mining in Sydney. And with me, I've got Daniel Poller with Automate. And Daniel, we're talking about obviously the future of automation. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Daniel, we run a database on automation ourselves, and one of the things that's obviously very clear is that safety is at the forefront of advancements in automation. If you removed safety completely out of the equation, what would a mine look like? And let's start with mine design.
Well, it's a great question, right? I mean, and to me, not being a technical person, I don't want to get too technical into the detail of what a mine might look like, but there's more questions we would ask. And I think those questions are, why are we moving dirt, for example, so far away? I mean, that to me is a fundamental issue. We're taking dirt, moving it 1 to 3 kilometers off and away, and then, by the way, we have to move it back. So the question is, could we just move dirt less? I mean, obviously we have to move the dirt, but could we do it less? Could we design a mine in such a way that we don't have to worry about safety, we're not worried about people, but instead we move things less, save a lot of money, save a lot of carbon emissions in the process? And I think those are the questions we need to start asking. How do we get to that mine of the future that is much more environmentally friendly and much more cost effective, especially as ore bodies are going to become deeper and harder to get to?
Okay, so are there some fundamental areas that look completely different for you, Daniel, or is it more tinkering around the margins? Where are the big changes that we're going to see in what a mine looks like?
It's a great question. And I would love to say that it's going to be fundamentally different. And for that, we need that industry participation to think differently. So we're already looking at certain areas, and I'll say smaller to some degree, around drill and blast, of how to do drill and blast differently. How do we remove people from the drill and blast process and do it in a different way, which is going to be more cost effective and less carbon emissions in that process. To do that, I mean, we're not doing it alone as Automate. We partner with 2 other partners in the industry, brought together different thoughts, brought together different processes, and how to change something. So for us, we can do part of it, but we need that broader participation of ideas from other tech companies coming together, not trying to work alone, but actually saying, what can we do differently? What crazy ideas do we have in order to collaborate and make changes? Because again, we want to listen to crazy stuff, right? We want to listen to ideas that are out there, that are fundamentally different, that might, but 90% of them won't work, of course, right? But that 10% that will are going to be the fundamental ones that change. So I think that's what we want to look at. So even incremental changes are good, but we'd love to look at the ones that are much more groundbreaking.
I'm going to have to ask, Daniel, what are some of the crazy ideas that you guys are throwing around at the moment?
Well, I think the craziest one comes from one of our managers on our side, who believes of creating a vehicle that's going to pick up the dirt, lift the dirt in the air, stay there, mine the ore, and then drop the dirt back.
And is that possible?
It's possible. Does it make any sense? I'm not sure.
Okay, and you're talking a lot about partnerships and collaboration and also emissions. One of the things that we hear a lot of is that collaboration is going to have to be happening at a much greater level up and down the value chain between service providers and miners, between different service providers, if we're going to hit the targets that we're shooting for as an industry, as a society. Are you seeing collaboration at the levels that are needed, and how important do you think it is?
So first of all, collaboration is essential. So I'm a big believer, because for us, if we start trying to do everything, even in the area of automation, if we try to do everything, we're not going to hit our goals. We have to do what we do really well and do it better. But if we try doing everything, we have to start doing things that honestly we're not experts at. A great example will be, take just LiDARs. We don't build LiDARs. We buy LiDARs off the shelf. And Baraja and Valadyne and a bunch of others are going to build better LiDARs than we ever could. And so why would we spend money and time developing a LiDAR, for example, when there's so many great LiDAR producers out there? And that's a simple, very simple one, but that goes throughout the value chain. We have to collaborate. We have to take from others what they do best. So we're doing that actively. Even in automation, we look through our stack and say, what do we do best? What do we have our real expertise? We do that. Let's focus on that. If somebody else can provide us a better way of doing something, we'll take it. And we're actively talking to competitors of ours even on where we can provide them value and they can provide us value. So, I mean, a great example is Xtonomy in Germany. And we've been talking with them because they have some great radar products. And I think they're a wonderful company, great people. And there's nothing wrong with us saying their product for excavators and how they can determine, a truck driving to the excavator and the safety around that is a great product. Could we develop it? Of course. Should we? No. They already have a great product. Why? It's not something that's core to us, so we can buy off the shelf from somebody else and integrate it to our product. That's a great saving for everybody, and it makes the industry stronger. I think where the lack of collaboration is the big OEMs. I think the large OEMs are still working in those closed systems, not allowing real innovation to happen. At least we tried to collaborate with some of the large OEMs. We said, listen, we want to do a few things, if possible, and we'll shut out.
What do you put that down to? Just stuck in the old mentality of competitive advantage?
I think so. I think they have the equipment, they close the systems, and then that makes them have that advantage of nobody can touch our systems, therefore we can charge higher prices, continue to innovate on our system, but not let anybody else in. I think it's an old mentality. I think it does harm to the industry, unfortunately. I hope it will change over time. I really am hopeful that the large OEMs will start looking at this as an opportunity to actually make their equipment better, to use ideas from everywhere, opposed to just being focused on their own teams. But obviously, we can only hope.
Well, I think from our perspective, Daniel, we look at a lot of different parts of the industry, and you look at the major miners in the Pilbara, for example. That was once a very competitive space, and you see them collaborating a lot more. The kind of collaboration you're talking about sounds like it's a long way departed from where it used to be. So fingers crossed the big OEMs start to move in that direction.
Let's hope.
The different styles of ore bodies that are out in the industry, it's not a one size fits all. How much of finding answers for the future mine comes down to being selective about which ore bodies and which types of mine you take different approaches to, and do you need to be tailored, or are there some fundamentals that you can apply to any ore body?
So I think the fundamentals for us would be we should be able to automate every ore body and get people out of every mine and get people to safety. I think that should be the fundamental thing we should look at. We don't have to look at just the large ore bodies, the ones that are using ultra-class dump trucks, to say those are the ones that fundamentally should be valuable and worth automating. We should be able to go to a small asset, automate it, and automate it profitably still. So that's something I think we should be able to do regardless, right? We should bring the cost of automation down, the pricing down, and the simplicity of it up so that anybody can automate any mine. I think, of course, when you get down to each ore body, you get to questions on what's the right equipment selection, what you should do. That's a different question. But automation fundamentally should be for every mine.
It's a great idea. It's a nice concept, but obviously large bulk tonnage mines lend themselves to long runs with heavy haul equipment. Small narrow vein gold mines, for example, don't. Is it practical to automate every mine?
So I think if we look at the open cut first on surface mining, I think yes. I think surface mining should be practical. I think we'll have to wait for sometimes regulation to catch up. So, for example, how much communication infrastructure do you need to put on a mine to automate it? So, if we can take that relatively large amount of infrastructure today to a lower amount of infrastructure, then you can up the ability to automate those smaller mines. I think for underground, there's still a lot more work to be done on automation. So I agree. There's probably a fundamental larger amount. And you're right, a small, narrow vein gold mine will probably present challenges to automate. But again, it doesn't mean we shouldn't go there, right? I mean, especially as those mines go deeper and deeper, the cost of ventilation gets higher and higher, that automation is going to provide more and more value. So it's an interesting question. I think definitely the large underground ore bodies should be able to be automated first. A narrow gold mine would present a bit of a challenge, but I think we're up for the challenge.
One final question, Daniel. what kind of time frames are we looking at if we're talking about automating the industry? What do you think's realistic?
I think that we can get 70% of the way there, on the surface mining at least, in the next 4 to 5 years. I think there'll be some fundamental areas that will be difficult still. So excavators will present a real challenge. So there'll be pockets which will, the automation of those pockets will take that extra 4 or 5 years later to get to. And then, of course, we have to bring the price down, right? I mean, a kit of an automation kit today is anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million US. I mean, just for the kit, that has got to come down to that 100 to 200,000 level to make it not, and again, not just for Western countries, right? We need to be looking at the safety across the industry as a whole. And to do that, the price has got to come down. So I think and that is happening, but I think that's probably a 7 to 10 year challenge.
Daniel Poller at Future Mining in Sydney, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.